In this video, we will describe the indicators used in performance analytics and show you the three types of indicators that you can use: automated, manual, and formula. We will also show you how to create a manual indicator, an automated indicator, and a formula indicator. So what are indicators? In performance analytics, indicators are metrics, or measurements. For example, when you go to the doctor for an annual physical, the doctor will usually take your blood pressure, check your heart rate and weight, and record these values in your chart. Taken over time, these measurements may be considered key measurements or indicators of the average person's health. In much the same way, key performance indicators, or KPIs, are the metrics that we deem to be critical for evaluating our performance within our organization. By defining the right set of metrics, we can try to drive performance improvements in our processes and across our organization. The indicators we provide with performance analytics are all important, but often it makes sense to focus on a specific, limited set of indicators first to drive improvements instead of trying to look at all areas simultaneously. So what types of indicators can you use? The ServiceNow platform provides automated, manual, and formula indicators in performance analytics. Automated indicators provide scores directly from any data stored in the ServiceNow database tables. For example, the number of new incidents is an automated indicator that reports on data from the incident table. When we look at its properties, we see that data is collected on a daily basis. The system is pulling source data from the incidents.new indicator source to populate this indicator, and the method of aggregation is count, meaning the system simply counts the number of records rather than performing any calculations on this data. But from where is the indicator source getting data? ServiceNow tables provide the base data sets for indicator sources. Indicator filters, in turn, narrow the base data sets down further to provide the data sets for indicators. Now let's look at manual indicators, which allow us to insert scores manually to protect sensitive information. Manual indicators can also be used for data that cannot be retrieved from your ServiceNow instance because it comes from an outside system. When we create a manual indicator, we can control whether or not the indicator will display in scorecards by setting display to true or false. We can further control access to the indicator by specifying whether or not it is visible to all roles, and if not, selecting the roles that will have access. Finally, we can specify contributors by name. The last type of indicator, formula, allows us to calculate results using multiple indicators. For example, the formula for the incident backlog growth indicator is the number of new incidents minus the number of resolved incidents. Formula indicators are important because they allow you to calculate important performance data from information you already have present in your existing automated and manual indicators. Now let's create one of each type of indicator, starting with a manual indicator. Our objective is to enter the number of new human resources, or HR, cases created on a daily basis by users who physically visited the HR office to open a case. Let's assume for the time being that this information is being stored in a spreadsheet, and an HR manager will be responsible for inputting the new number into the indicator on a daily basis. Because HR data are sensitive, we want to hide this indicator from display in scorecards, so we make display false. We also want to specify that only users with the admin role can see the values for this indicator. Finally, we want to specify our HR manager as the data contributor, as she will be entering the number of HR cases on a daily basis. Here, we create a login and password for her to perform this task. We need to assign her the PA contributor and PA viewer roles so that she can add scores to the manual indicator and view the results on the scorecards and dashboards to which she has been granted access. Back in the manual indicator we just created, the scores for this indicator link takes us to the score sheet, where we can enter scores for the previous week, including today. A few weeks later, we're in luck because the HR department is now using ServiceNow's HR solution, which is now automatically tracking all HR cases entered into the instance, regardless of whether the case was opened via an office visit or not. we can create an automated indicator since we now have a data source from which the instance can derive data. Now we'll create a new automated indicator in the Automated Indicators page. When we look at this indicator's properties, we can see that it has a Source tab. Here we can specify the indicator source. In this case, we'll have to add a new indicator source because the default sources do not contain information from the HR case tables. Since our data is being tracked daily, we select Daily for Valid for Frequency. Then we select the facts table that the indicator will derive data from, and apply any conditions if needed. In this case, we want to know the number of new HR cases opened on a given day. Now that we're gathering data about the total number of new HR cases that are entered daily, as well as the number of those HR cases that were opened in person, we could use those two variables to calculate the percentage of HR cases that were opened in person. To do this, we'll create a new formula indicator. Because we're calculating a percentage, we'll select % for the unit value. In the formula field, we can build a formula using the Browse for an Indicator link. To find the percentage of HR cases opened in person, we'll divide the % of HR cases opened in person by the number of new HR cases. Now that we have created our indicators, we need to set up a job to collect historical data, as well as for ongoing data collection. In the next video in this series, we will show you how to create your first data collection job. For more information, please consult our product documentation or knowledge base, or ask a question in the ServiceNow community.